Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Coup Coach Cast with Coach Jim Glogowski. I'm one of your hosts, Chad Birger. Today I'm going to be joined by co-host Sam Dooyema, and we are going to talk about all things University of Sioux Falls Cougar football. Quick note, we are sponsored by Atomic Wings and the Coup Football Legacy Association. So let's go ahead and recap the Cougars' Week 5 or Game 5 matchup against the Beavers from Minot State.
Welcome back to the Coup Coach Cast, and unfortunately, we will be discussing a Coup loss today. USF making the long trip up to Minot, North Dakota on Saturday, September 28th, and unfortunately couldn't quite get the job done, falling 26-22 to the Red Beavers, and evening their conference record at 2-2, 3-2 overall. USF jumped out to a quick 13-0 lead in the first quarter. Things looked like they were kind of clicking there for a little bit. Minot State would answer. The Coup would tack on a quick field goal there before the second half. Scoreless third quarter coming to the second half, and unfortunately for the Coup, it was essentially a scoreless second half as Minot would put on 12 points in that fourth quarter. And USF did get a late touchdown in their 2-minute offense. Unfortunately, the gap was just a little bit too large at that point. What's weird about that, it didn't change the outcome, but there was actually an offensive pass interference on that play that was declined. It looks like originally that the play didn't count, but the touchdown ended up counting, which of course opens up all sorts of interesting philosophical football questions like, is the game actually over because the PAT was never kicked, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it doesn't close the gap and change the outcome. Just breaking down some of those individual scoring here on the next slide. That, like I said, USF jumping out to a quick lead following a Matt Gehring interception. Carter Slykehouse hauled in an 8-yard touchdown pass from Camden Dean. And Travis Yonke also hauled in a 15-yard touchdown pass from Dean. Missed the PAT on that one. Quick 13-0. Things are looking good. So we roll into the second quarter. Some things I want to highlight. I think Coach is going to talk about this too. Minot putting together 75-yard, 12-play drive, ending with a Sam Buckhannon touchdown run. USF would answer with that field goal there towards the end of the half. And then Minot putting together another long 15-play, 78-yard drive to make it 16-14 heading into the half. As we roll into that second half, no points in the third quarter, but that's when really Minot really got that option in that run game rolling. 17-play, 72-yard drive, time of possession, 9-minute drive. And Minot was able to put that one together, answered with another 8-play, 5-minute drive. And then in the fourth quarter, did it again with a 28-yard field goal. And like I said, USF then ended with kind of that late touchdown, a little too late. And unfortunately, there was no PAT attempt. We'll leave that to the stat heads out there to see how that really looks. But final score, 26-22. Not like what we like to see, but we're going to bring Coach to discuss the loss and just some things he saw with the team and what they continue to work on. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me. I think the biggest thing in looking back on last week is, the frustration, the disappointment of going on the road and coming back with a loss. Nobody wants that, obviously. I think the thing that stood out to me the most was, I kind of talked about this a little bit in the pregame, but you go on the road and you play a team like that, you worry about being maybe slow, sluggish, whatever the case might be. But I actually thought we started out fast. We did. We had we had an interception, we had 3 and out. We score, everything's going great, and then we missed the extra point, and that's always kind of a weird feeling, like, is that going to come back to haunt you? And I don't know that the point haunted us. I think it was the beginning of the tip of the iceberg for the momentum flipping. They got going a little bit offensively and scored, and then we had a chance to go back down and go up 21-7, I think it was, and we had settled for a field goal, which we nailed, and that was great and all that. But then before the half, they scored again, and maybe the thing that sticks out the most was the number of possessions. And I was telling the kids yesterday, the last time I was a part of a game that was that short, in 2 hours and 20 minutes of real time. And literally, if you take out the kneel down at the end of the first half that we had, which was essentially not really a possession, it was one snap, I think. But, each team had 8 possessions. And the last time I was part of a game like that, I was a senior in college at USD, and we played North Dakota State, and we were the wing T, and they were a veer option. So, man, when you talk about only 8 possessions, and we technically scored on 4 of the 8, that's a pretty good day if you're 50% scoring points on drives you had. The problem was it just was a very condensed game, and we had a couple of costly mistakes, and they took advantage of them, and, that's the way the game shook out. So a little bit weird that way. Neither team had over 300 yards of offense. They ran the ball 70 times. They averaged 3 yards a carry, and essentially it's like death by 1,000 cuts. I felt like I was, going through surgery with a paper cut instead of a scalpel. That's what it felt like, and it was like surgical, and it was frustrating and disappointing, and our kids were frustrated. Our kids want to win. Our kids were disappointed with the outcome, and our kids had to suffer that 9-hour ride home and eat cold pizza. So, I mean, we all get it. It doesn't change the fact that we were unsuccessful, but hopefully it motivates us and gives us some motivational gas in our tank for next week.
Coach, you kind of brought up the stats from the game, and, it was relatively even offensively. I'll go ahead and put some of the statistics up here. Total yardage, USF 255, Minot 285. So both teams kind of were held in check a little bit, but like you said, not a whole lot of possessions on the day to accumulate those stats. But I think, one of the big things that I noticed was, number one, Minot State, they had really high 3rd down and 4th down conversion rates, able to really convert some of those. And I know I heard you talk about that on the post-game show with Tom and Tim after the game. But then the other thing was the time of possession. I mean, 40 minutes to 20 minutes. That's a 2-to-1. That's a big time of possession change there, difference in the game. So how did those things impact the outcome of the game on Saturday?
Well, it's interesting. It's the exact opposite of what happened at St. Thomas. At the St. Thomas game, we controlled the clock. Our defense took a short amount of snaps, and it was just the reverse scenario. And, they're a ball control offense. I like to think that we are too, to a certain extent. I think the frustrating part is that we allowed them too many second and short situations. And when you're playing a triple option team, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, those are the higher percentage for those guys to hit it, because the way they run their offense, the dive hits downhill, and they're only going to get 1 or 2 yards of crack. But when it's 3rd and 1, that's all you need. And so, they force you. It's a different style of game. If you look at those stats, it's indicative of who we are as a football team and who they are. I think we both probably never guessed there'd be 8 possessions total in the game, and you got to make them count. And if one of those possessions, again, was a turnover, on the 2nd or 3rd play of the drive, we fumbled the ball. We went 3 and out twice to start the second half when we had some opportunities, and we maybe dropped a pass or missed a guy that was open. We didn't coach well enough. Let me just say that first. We have to coach better. We have to find a way to get our kids to fit the run faster. They did a couple little wrinkles that were different that we weren't necessarily prepared for from a standpoint of we hadn't seen it on film leading up to the game. But the other piece of that is we're a 4-down defensive front. And so when you're watching film of other teams, they're playing a lot of different looks. So you're kind of, you're like I said, it's like going to a haunted house. I know I'm going to get scared, just not sure who's going to come around the corner and surprise me, And so we know we're going to get certain things. But when we played the way we played our defensive line, we knew they were going to attack the C and the D gap. And most of the time we got there. I think the longest run they had, or the longest pass that they had, I think was 14 yards. The longest run was maybe 12. So it's not like we got big played to death. There was no big plays actually to speak of from there on offense, which, again, walking into the game, if you said the longest run is going to be 10, 12 yards, I'm feeling great about the outcome. If you're going to hold them to 3 yards of carry, I'm feeling great about the outcome. It's just that, again, stats are tricky. So I don't know. I think the 3rd down conversion was certainly in their favor, although we weren't terrible. We just didn't have enough of them, to be honest with you. And on 4th down, they were extremely efficient, surgical, 3 for 3. And, we got to do a better job on 3rd and 4th down moving forward. You face 70 rushes and you give up 260 yards or whatever. We got to be better. We just got to be better against the run. And the weird part is you're not going to see that type of offense again. So that's the dynamic of it. It's a once a year thing right now. And I sat in my house on Thursday night and I watched Army play a game on ESPN or whatever on Thursday night. And I texted Coach Cap, our DC, and I'm like, my God, can you imagine if these guys get to the 3 or 4 years in the program at Minot and they're doing all the things that Army's doing? Army and Navy are both 8-0, I think, in the country. They both run a similar offense. And when you have good players that execute at a high level, you're going to be successful, and that doesn't matter what scheme you run. So give credit to Minot. They did a great job. We need to coach better. I've got to do a better job of getting us prepared to handle those types of running game type situations. And, we'll look forward to defending the triple option again next year. And in the meantime, we've got to get ready for Mankato.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go through those statistics then. Sam, I don't know if you want to read through this statistic slide for us.
Yeah, happy to. And so, like we said, pretty evenly matched game. Total yards, USF with 255, the Beavers with 285. Not surprisingly, USF having 170 pass yards to only 14 for Minot. The rushing yards kind of flipped that on its head. USF having 85 to 271. Penalty yards relatively even. Same thing. It felt like a relatively clean game as well. First downs about even, but like Coach said, it really came down to those third and fourth downs. USF relatively efficient, 5 for 9, but Minot having 17 different third down and converting on over half of those, and 3 for 3 and fourth down. And we already talked about that double the time of possession there. We look at some of those offensive stats as well. Camden Dean, solid day, 17 for 24, 170 total yards, 3 touchdowns, carrying the ball, 6 carries for 18 yards. Run again, 12 carries for 42 yards. Slykaus, 6 receptions for 59 yards and coming away with 2 touchdowns. Travis Yonke having 15 yards and 1 reception, and it was a touchdown. I mean, that's efficiency right there for the big tight end. Coach, we talked a lot about the defense, especially with Minot's offense, and I do just want to ask a little bit about USF's offense and Minot's defense. I felt like we kind of mentioned it, and I think even as fans watching the game, there was some inconsistency. Started fast, like you said, you started quick. What changed? Was that Minot's defense? Was it just some of those things getting in guys' head? And that's just football. But I just want to see what you think from an offensive perspective, what really happened where that drought, where you just couldn't put things away.
Yeah. So, just to be direct, I mean, the first 3 drives, we put points on the board. And obviously you always want touchdowns, but you always want to end the drive in a kick, whether it's a punt, an extra point, or a field goal. And we did that in the first 3 drives. Then the 4th drive, we got the ball back right before halftime. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm thinking right, maybe not. Maybe we went 3 and out in the 4th drive. I'm trying to remember here. But then the last drive we had right before halftime was 1 play. So really, if you're going to score 3 out of 4 drives and take a 1 play halftime cuts the drive short, pretty good first half. Going into halftime, we felt pretty good. We had scored 16 points. We had capitalized on roughly 75% of our opportunities and felt great. Come out in the second half, had a missed block on the perimeter on the first play, and they got us in 2nd and 10. We dropped the ball on 2nd down. Then on 3rd down, we took a sack. So we punted away. I think we went 3 and out again, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think then we had a fumble on the 2nd play of the drive, maybe. So they pushed us out of bounds, got a late hit, moved up 15 yards. And at that point, we were down by 7. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. And we get the ball. We're about at the 40-yard line, and we fumble. Unfortunately, we turn the ball over, and they get a short field. So held them to a field goal on defense, which was good. And then we get the ball back, and we had a holding call on 3rd down. Cam scrambles for the 1st down, and we get a holding call. So now you're back to 3rd and long, and you end up punting. And then they hold them to a field goal again, and so and that was it. Then we go down and score and drive 80 yards. And I know it's 2 minutes. I know it's the end of the game. They're playing soft and all that. And I get there was a penalty at the end and all that. It was kind of a weird ending, but we did drive 80 yards in about 1 minute and 5 seconds and scored. So as I'm looking at this, 9, and again, I understand from a production standpoint, but I'm looking at it from, we had the ball 9 times. We put the ball in the end zone 3. We kicked a field goal once. So 4 out of 9, we put points on the board. The 1 drive, we go 1 play, it's halftime. So that's 5. So now you're talking about you went 3 and out 3 times, right? Or something like that. And that's not horrendous. It's not ideal. And then the 1 turnover, it just, I wish I had a better explanation. I'm talking, as honest as possible about it. It was very frustrating. But if I'm being honest with our offensive staff, I think it's unrealistic to say we're going to score 7 times out of 8 times you get the football against a team that's 4-1. I mean, at the end of the day, give them credit too. They had a nice game plan. But when we had the ball 9 times, take out the 1 drive, we scored on 4 of the 8 drives. That's a pretty decent day if you're going to score 50% of the times that you get the football. It's just that we had a limited amount of possessions because defensively we couldn't get off the field. I think they had the ball for 23 minutes in the second half. They had the ball for 23 of the 30 minutes in the second half. And that's on me as the head coach defensively. I'm a defensive guy, not finding a way to get off the field on multiple 3rd downs. And so any one of those situations, we had a couple costly penalties. We had a hands to the face on 3rd and 5. They gave him a 1st down late in the second half. That hurt. We could talk about the fumble. That was certainly not a positive, but who knows what we do on that drive. But it was 2 plays, and we turned it over. So, Yeah. The worst part about it is if you think about the 4 drives we didn't score, I think we had a total of 9 plays. Think about that. 9 plays and 4 drives. The one halftime, we fumbled on the second play, the one drive, and then we went 3 and out twice. That's 9 snaps in 4 possessions. That's just not going to cut it. So, in the special teams wise, I don't know that we did anything special teams wise that was out of the ordinary. We missed an extra point. That didn't help. So, in all 3 phases, we have to play better. And, in the future, we will play better. I believe that. It's really frustrating. And, and I'm just being direct about it. It's disappointing. Not because of the fact that we had the result. That's certainly obvious. It's the way that we played in terms of opportunities that you have to recognize the moment. This is a big opportunity because I said to Coach Litters at the end of the third quarter, we'll be lucky if we get the ball 2 more times. So we knew that, right? We knew the game was being shortened and all that stuff. And the weird part about it is if you score a touchdown, you go up 17 instead of 17 or 16, I guess, and you go up 21-7. Now they're chasing you, right? If you score anything in the start of the second half, now you're 2 possessions ahead of those guys. That completely changed the dynamic and the pace at which they run their offense. So when they're within a touchdown and they're having success on the ground, there's no urgency for them. They were totally comfortable turning that into an 8-possession game. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I think that's the part that we have to understand as a team, as a staff, as a program. Man, these things are gold. These 8 opportunities are gold. We have to maximize. And going 3 and out twice in an 8-possession game is like going 3 and out half the time in a normal game. Does that make sense? I'm trying to
I think that's great perspective. And I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I just appreciate I think watching it as a fan, it's equally frustrating. So, and we know we know the players are, and I didn't have to ride on the bus back to Minot. I already did that. I already had to do that. I already had to do that twice in my career, Coach. So that was enough.
It's the thing I love about this program and the opportunity for me to explain our program and to be able to get people insight into how it feels, and I'll come back to this. There's humans involved. They have feelings. There's families that drove up there. Nobody wants to lose. Nobody went out there to say, man, if I could just miss this block here, I don't think it'll bother us too much. I'm kind of tired of this snap. Nobody does that. These kids work really hard. I love the kids. I told them, I said, but this is about learning and growing in the process, and nobody wants to hear that, right? And we kind of mentioned off camera, we all love Alabama and Kalen DeBoer, but boy, he's 1 touchdown catch away from that being a completely different narrative. And I see all the memes out there. It's like, Bama's little sister or little brother is Georgia. Well, that's great. But if that guy, 1 or 2 plays and you have a different tone. And I think that's so funny about a lot of this stuff is a couple plays here and there and you have a completely different tone and outlook. What I would like to share with everybody out there is what I cannot do as the head football coach is I can't completely change the narrative. I cannot completely change the process, what we do on a daily basis because the result wasn't what we wanted. You have to believe in what we do and how we do it. And if we do it this way consistently over time, we'll get the expected results that we want over time. It may not just be every single Saturday, even though we want it to be that way every single Saturday. And sounds like life, right? That's the same way in life.
Coach, I have a quick follow-up question off of that, and we'll try to keep it quick here. But so I put a little graphic up there, but Sam is a former offensive lineman. I actually was an offensive lineman at the Cougars. One of those games where I felt like the Cougars didn't have a lot of success running the football against Minot, and was part of that because they did have so much success running the ball. And like you said, the possessions were at a premium. Does that kind of change the way that you call the game in that, you don't want to keep the clock running all those times? I don't know if that really has any impact on the way that you call the game.
No, great question. And I guess the easiest answer would be, I think that we did run the ball the way we wanted to in the first half. I think what happened as the game wore on and we knew we had limited possessions, now we're trying to, you got to remember 2 or 3 of the last possessions we had, we were trailing. So we're trying to catch up. We're trying to conserve time. We're trying to put the ball in the air because logically throwing the ball, gaining yards is faster than running the ball at 4 yards a clip, right? If you can get 15, 20 yards a pop, that's obviously more efficient with time. But I think what ended up happening was the plan to run the football kind of took a back seat to number of possessions left in the game, time running down. And certainly the last drive of the game was all passes, right? For the most part, that was all we could do because of the clock. The second and third to the last drives of the game, we were behind. So we're trying to play catch up. At one point, we were down 3, and then we were down 7, and then we're down 10. So those last 3 drives, I think you saw a premium on passing. So again, going back to 8 total possessions, if 3 of them are you're behind and trying to score with under 7 minutes to go when we had the ball, those first 5 possessions, I felt like we had a pretty good balance. As a matter of fact, the fumble was on a rush. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. We only had 44, 45 snaps. You're right. We threw it 24 times. We ran it 20 times. I think if you look at the stats, we were 50-50 balanced. We just didn't have the chunk yardage in the run game that we'd like. The funny part is there's a short yardage play early on where Christian Nash gets tripped up. We actually got tripped on our own guy. He hit his knee on one of our offensive linemen. If he doesn't hit his knee on the kid, and he probably keeps his balance, and he's gone for a 60-yard touchdown instead of settling for a field goal on that drive, if you remember that sequence. So again, like I always say, fellas, if and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So I'm keeping this in perspective because I love our kids. I love their attitude, their want to. I mean, they cleaned up the locker room after the game. They got on the bus. They behaved themselves. They carry themselves the way we want to carry ourselves in the hotel and the restaurants. They're doing the things I'm asking them to do. We just got to be better on the field, and that's the goal for this week,
Quick rundown of the defensive statistics for the Cougars on Saturday. Andy Henson had 13 total tackles, 9 solo. Kane McWilliams, 10. Garrett Hoffman, 10. Matt Gearing had 7 tackles and a couple other things that we'll go over. Brady Crawford, 7 tackles. Clay Sokol, 6. And Tristan Hoppe, 6. Gearing also had an interception and a sack on the game. And then Henson, Gearing, Preston Yonke, and Maloa Wells got in the tackle for loss game. But like you said, just a lot of offensive plays for long drives for the Beavers. And that led to a lot of these numbers being a little bit higher than we usually see for the tackling for the Cougars.
Yeah, I think our kids played really hard, and I think we went with Kane McWilliams was our player of the game. I think he played a really good football game and asked that corner to get involved. And certainly, I don't take it for granted that our linebackers and safeties had a lot of tackles, but they were in a position to make a lot of those tackles because of the defense we run. But I mean, again, the kids played really hard, and I think it's really, really frustrating when you see it's 1st and 10, 2nd and 7, 3rd and 3, first down. And that's on us as a defense, as coaches, as players. But the frustration was evident. And I think a little bit of that, it mounted as the game wore on, right? There's this, you get tense and you're like, if I'm being honest, the kids on the sideline I'm like, hey, just keep playing. Just keep playing. Good things will happen. Give a lot of credit to Minot State. They played a pretty clean game. He threw the interception on the first drive. They had one other fumbled snap, but they put the ball on the ground once in 71 carries. They took care of the football. We weren't able to punch it out, strip it. So they didn't put themselves in any positions too where they didn't cause themselves any major self-inflicted wounds, and that made a difference too.
Well, let's go ahead and honor our sponsor here, maybe pay the bills as things go. So let's start off with Atomic Wings. Attention, USF Cougar fans. There's a new favorite spot for wings in Sioux Falls. Atomic Wings is now open at 1502 East 69th Street in Sioux Falls, just north of the USF Stadium. Atomic Wings offers customers fresh, never frozen, natural, and hormone-free chicken wings, hand-tossed in 14 proprietary sauces, a classic menu, a welcome dining experience, and a commitment to quality. Come watch sports, enjoy wings, and have a cold one at the self-serve beer station. They do have Sunday NFL tickets. The menu includes traditional wings, boneless wings, chicken tenders, sandwiches, flatbreads, and salads. Also choose from waffle fries, onion rings, mac and cheese, jalapeno poppers, mozzarella sticks, tater tots, or sweet potato fries as a side. And don't forget the desserts. Deep fried Oreos is an option that you can't get everywhere. There's something for everyone in the entire family at Atomic Wings. You can order online at atomicwings.com or come in. Located at 69th Street, just north of the USF football stadium. Perfect for pregame tailgates or postgame celebrations with friends and family. And so let's go ahead and come back out here. I met a friend at Atomic Wings on Friday, had some lunch. Friend of mine, he's actually a former Augie player, but he just beat cancer this summer. So I was like, I'm taking you out for some wings. So
yeah, we can all put aside Augie for that. I mean,
yeah,
put aside that's awesome.
Yeah. So I was pretty happy to meet with him. But yeah, Atomic Wings, perfect place to meet friends, family, whatever. They'll take care of you over there. Let's go ahead and bring up the Atomic player of the game here, or players of the game. If I can get my screen all set up here. Share my screen, and there we go. Atomic players of the game for this week were Cam Dean on offense, Kane McWilliams on defense, and Hank Brown on special teams. Coach, you want to talk us through
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'll be honest with you. It's hard to give out players of the game when you lose, right? I mean, that's if I'm being direct and honest with you. There's a part of us as a staff we're looking through there, and we didn't play great football. We played some solid football at times, but we didn't play phenomenal football. But I thought at the quarterback position, Cam was pretty efficient with the football. I think he had 3 touchdowns, and so that's how he garnered that award. And he's a guy that he makes us go, and he's got to play at a high level for us to have some big time goals, and I think he will continue to get better and progress. Kane McWilliams, I thought there was a couple different guys. I think Matt Guerin was a candidate this week. I think Andy Henson. I think what it came down to is that Kane played a really solid game and was really physical at a corner position where he did things in that game that he doesn't normally do as a corner, right? All those tackles, that's not typical. And then Hank Brown, again, there wasn't a ton of special teams type of events, I guess you'd say, to be able to pick from. A lot of fair catches, a lot of kicks out of bounds, that kind of stuff into the end zone. But I thought for the most part, he had a really nice kickoff return and a kid that has some nice juice back there. And the one he hit, he read it really well. And so he does a good job for us on that. And he's a kid that as a young freshman has got a bright future.
Well, Coach, next we're going to step into our Coach's Clicker segment. So we've been doing this over the past few weeks. I'm going to pull up some plays from the game on Saturday, and we will take a look at some of those plays. The first one that I have is early on in the game, Minot's first possession. This play right here, Minot's a running team. They're an option running team, and you guys kind of got them into a position where I think it was, kind of a long yardage situation.
Yeah, third down.
Here. Yep, third down and long, and you can kind of see where the sticks are at on the top of the screen right now. But they came into a passing situation, and kind of talk us through what's happening here.
Well, this is Matt Guerin, and this is the irony of this is almost the exact same situation for the third week in a row. He had the interception against Mary on a very similar drop. He had the interception last against Bemidji on a very similar drop, and now this is the third week in a row. And the funny part is I said to him in the pregame, I said, you're probably going to get another pick today because if you keep dropping the way you're dropping into coverage, you put yourself in the throwing lane. And he does a really good job of, if you see it from the beginning, he gets depth. He gets to we want him to get to about 10 to 15 yards depth, and then he's got to get his eyes on the quarterback, and then he's got to feel the receiver. And with this one route receiver to his side, the back goes away, so he knows it's a one-man route to his side. He just kind of settles and reads the quarterback eyes, and he puts himself at the proper depth. And it's a little bit weird this week because he was so close to the ball, where normally he's 5 yards off the ball as an outside linebacker. So I was really proud for the depth he got and how he keeps drifting, and he feels, you can kind of see his hands behind his tail here, kind of like feeling, looking for that kind of, we talk about like boxing out in basketball, get that body position, and that allows him to get underneath the throw and make a nice snatch.
Yeah, if you're watching online on YouTube, you can see that, Matt's actually at the end of the line of scrimmage here, when the play starts, but does a great job of recognizing and dropping into coverage, and then is able to, use those hands. And
yeah,
was he wearing gloves on that one? Okay,
oh, yeah.
I thought maybe Chad Birger did there for a second.
Well, those gloves today, are pretty much like the old Lester Haynes days of the stickum. Anything that hits those gloves, I see more one-handed catches, and but look at the guys. The guys are excited. Their fins up. They're playing with emotion, and at this point, man, life is great, right? Football-wise, you can't get any better start than we get. We go down and score, short field. So, I don't want to be too negative. There was a lot of positives in the first half. We were up 16-14 and a half. They basically had 2 drives that we couldn't get off the field. And, I'm not disappointed in our kids' effort, and I'm not disappointed in all that. I'm just more frustrated that we weren't able to play the full 60 minutes.
Yeah, so here's the ensuing drive for USF. Drove the ball all the way down the field, get inside the 10, and run a little bit of a, cross action here. You got the running back kind of faking the outside zone to the right here, and Slykehouse is sneaking back to the left underneath behind those big offensive linemen.
Yeah, and Carter's a guy, again, another guy that could have been up for player of the game, and I thought he did some good things. He's a guy that we need to get the ball to, try to get the ball to him early, get some screens. This is a different wrinkle here where we're bringing him back behind the line of scrimmage. You hope that he just kind of gets lost in the confusion a little bit, and he slides out the front end, and this is a pretty simple play that a lot of teams run down the goal line area because you don't know if you're going to run it, and they got to be keen on that guy. And as he comes across, they don't pick him up, and he's wide open in the flat, and then it's just a matter of putting the ball in a position where you can catch it and get vertical and not have to break stride.
Now, one of the things, Coach, I noticed that, okay, so you get some celebration. Only Yukon comes over for the offensive line. I want to see more offensive linemen over there celebrating with him next game.
That's a great point. And I think those are things we point out with our guys all the time is that, and you know what, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but this is like, as a coach watching this, maybe there's a little telltale time that the expectation was, oh, we're going to score. Maybe we take it for granted. Maybe we just assume that, we're going to score. Let's go. We're going to get a bunch of these today. It's every win, every victory. I want these guys to celebrate and enjoy their success the right way. I don't want them flexing on the opponent. I don't want them taunting the other side, but I want us to go enjoy each other's success. And that's a great point you bring up. If we're being honest about that, we need to see more celebration in the end zone with each other, celebrating each other's success.
My former teammate, Casey Peters, and I always had to get down there. We had to get our fingers up, and we could have daiquiris in the end zone. So, Peters, if you're listening, we gotta coach these guys up about getting daiquiris in the end zone because we had to be the first guys to get those guys up in the air. So,
absolutely. I mean,
we'll work on that.
It's a game. Yeah, you got to enjoy the successes when you have them.
Absolutely.
All right. So this is later on in the first quarter. Still having success. This formation, you've got Mark Leonard kind of going in motion. He's split out to the right a little bit. You've got slot on the, two receivers on the top side here. And then you've got Yankee in the down traditional tight end. It looks like they've got, not too many guys in the box here defensively.
Well, I think the thing you see is they got one high safety. You see how that one high, he's just at the bottom of the A in Beavers there on the goal line there. And this is something we talked about all week long, that if you're going to take this throw, the way he places this ball, he doesn't want to put this ball on the BEA side of the Beavers. He wants to put it on the AVE side of the Beavers in the end zone, if that makes sense. And you watch when he throws his ball, he kind of pipes this thing in there. It's a really nice throw and catch. It kind of gets up on Travis pretty quick, but you see how he throws that ball back to the right? That he keeps it away from the safety, because if he throws that ball towards the BEA and Beavers, he's going to run him right into the safety. So as that safety turns and looks to the front side of the play, he kind of throws it behind the safety and keeps that guy from getting hit by the safety. So that would be the point I'd point out here, is it's a really good throw. And again, you see a little more celebration. A couple more, there you go. And that's the thing. I don't want to make it sound like our guys aren't happy for each other, and we kind of said, hey, let's party. Let's go party in the end zone. And now you're up 13-0. But you watch this throw. It's a really nice throw. It's a nice catch. He keeps it away from the safety right there. And that made all the difference, because number 2 was just not able to break that pass up. And we were on point. We're feeling pretty good. I think this is coming off a long drive, and yeah, everything's going good.
Well, then Minot gets the ball, drives it all the way down, end of the first quarter, into the second quarter, about a minute in. They get it. And, you had talked last week about the option. If people weren't able to watch the game, this is a little bit of, what you get at this point. You can see they're obviously running it to the left. The offensive linemen on the right side are giving some cut blocks over here. They just decide, we're going to do a fullback dive, and the Cougars were unable to make the play, and it ran it into the end zone.
Yeah, at the beginning of that play, so, we're in a technique here where we talked about on the interception, same situation. Matt's up on the line of scrimmage, number 9 here, and he's getting this tight end blocking on him. So what he needs to do is he needs to work inside the tight end, not outside. So if he works inside the tight end, and then you see the lead blocker, number 32, he should fit between 89 and 32. So right now, Matt needs to take his body and turn in to get his hips inside. Instead, he goes outside. Okay, well, why that's important is because if you look at the linebacker, number 32, Andy is scraping inside out, number 32 at the beginning of that play, or inside linebacker. And as Andy comes inside out, he should fit on the inside portion of 32. And then our defensive end gets too high in his pads, and so our defensive end gets pushed backwards. So the DN gets pushed back into the linebacker, who's trying to come over the top of the DN and fit inside number 32. So worst case scenario, you got the outside backer going outside when he's supposed to go inside. You got the defensive end getting pushed back inside, bumping into the Mike, and then the Mike backer, Andy Henson, who's coming inside out, who's supposed to fit in between the outside linebacker, number 9, and the defensive end, number 44, Caleb Rasher. He gets caught in the trash, as we like to say, and he just doesn't get over the top, and there's the crease, and it's 3 yards. So when you're playing this type of offense, every single guy has to do his job on every single play. And if you just look at this particular play, because the option potential is there. You see number 8 carrying out the option out here to the left. We have the guy for the quarterback, the corner, Kane McWilliams, and then you see the safety rolling out over the top, Garrett Hoffman. Garrett has the pitch. So everybody has a job. And if somebody gets a little bit off kilter in their job, and Matt went outside instead of coming inside, we end up with 2 guys on the quarterback and not enough guys on the inside for the dive. And, that's the nature of option football. And I'll be honest with you, give them credit. They executed at a high level, and we struggled at certain times in key situations, and that was the difference in the ballgame.
Yeah, we'll bring in the next touchdown here for Minot.
So now you got a little bit of, we call this a counter. This is a counter trap option, right? So now the quarterback starts one way and then he reverses field and counters back the other way. So you hear the word counter, right? And really, this is probably the traditional counter where you have an offensive lineman both pulling to the left, and then the action starts to the left and comes back to the right. See that? So the guard tackler pulling out to the right, the tailback is going, or excuse me, the dive back is going to the left. So they're running counter keep, really. And now it's just a matter of getting somebody outside the first pulling guard, inside the first pulling guard, and then inside the second pulling guard. So you've got to have 3 guys to fit the 3 gaps that are being created on the right side. And Kane, I think it's Kane, comes up and he just gets a little too tight here. He needs to come up wider and work outside in. Instead, he attacks inside and tries to go back out. And then he gets hung up on him, and it's just enough for the guy to get around the corner. So you talk about precision, you talk about how we're fitting it and all that. And again, this is a play that we had talked about. We thought that they would run, and it's going full speed at the game, but it wasn't actually full speed by the scout team during the week. It's a little bit faster, gets up on us a little bit quicker, but in no way, shape, or form are the guys not knowing what to do. It's just a little bit off on the technique, and it costs us.
Yeah. Well, Coach,
down, I think, too, if I'm not mistaken.
That was, and they had just called a timeout prior to that play, and so.
Yeah, and I think, those are things that, let's just put it this way, those things mount to the frustration level. It doesn't help you. It doesn't lower your stress level, Chad. It increases it, Sam. So I know Sam's Dr. D on Twitter, but that we needed a doctor right there, a doctor of defense, to figure out how to figure that out sooner. But live and learn, right?
Well, Coach, that'll do it for this week's Coach's Clicker. I had a bunch of other plays queued up, but I'm not going to sit here and make you talk about defending the option or things like that.
Well, the one thing I will say is I do think this. I think this is an awesome avenue for us to be able to kind of give people some insight, and I appreciate that piece of it, and I love doing it. I really do. And I think the thing about the process and those type of things is you can't just love it when you win, right? You have to love teaching and coaching even when you lose. And we really tried talking about the process of staying the course and getting better. And we'll do that. We'll get better this week. And got another tall task. There's no doubt about it. But the beauty of it is they're humans just like us, and they've got to execute just like we do. And if we can out execute them, or at least do our job more consistently than last week, then we give ourselves a better chance of winning the football game. And that's always the goal.
Coach, you stole my transition with, I was about to compliment you for coming on after a tough loss on Tough D, and here you are. So I just want to say thank you for coming on to the Coup Coach Cast and doing this and breaking down in Chad Keys. He doesn't always just do the big highlights and stuff, and we really appreciate your insight as a coach and really knowing what you guys are looking at from a football perspective, but really a program perspective too. So
yeah, well,
thanks for taking time to do it, because I learned a ton. I'm how many years removed, but I'm still like, oh, that's what was going through their head on Saturday.
Well,
like, all right.
Tom said the same thing in the post game. Hey, thanks for coming up after a loss, and I was like, I didn't know I had a choice, right? We got contracts and sponsors, and Birger's, his affinity for atomic wings. If I don't show up, and it's just the Birger cast and eating wings, I don't know, but anyhow, I do think that as the leader of the program, right, the face of the program, you don't get to be the leader when it's going just well, right? It's like being a parent. I got 4 kids of my own. It's great to be their parent, their dad, when they're the scholar athlete of the month or whatever, and they're getting all A's. It ain't always fun going to teacher conferences when they're screwing up and getting C's or D's, right? But you don't get to be their parent just when they're getting A's. You got to be their parent when they're getting C's and D's. And it's the same way as the football coach of this program. I signed up for all of it, just like I tell our players. When you sign up to play, you love getting your picture in the paper. You love getting interviewed after the game. You also have to love it when it doesn't go well. And that's the beauty of life. You have to keep pushing forward even when it doesn't go well. And that's what a great lesson. Nobody wants to lose, but if you're going to lose, how do you handle it? Those things are lifelong lessons that I hope our kids are learning. And if we don't take the advantage of teaching this after a loss, then we've failed them as coaches and leaders.
Well, Coach, that kind of brings us to some questions that have come up since the game. A few people have chimed in here. We're not going to call them out or give them a shout out here, but you mentioned, C's and D's versus A's and B's. How would you grade the offense so far this season up to this point? What's your Coach Glow report card here?
Yeah, I think it's been up and down, to be honest with you. It's been a little bit inconsistent. I think we've been below 300 yards the last 2 weeks, and we can explain away stats and all that kind of stuff. But those are a general marker, a litmus test for what kind of offense you have. You can look at stats in the league and all that. And I think we're somewhere in the top half, top third of the league. So I think it's been a C plus, B. It's certainly not been A level, but there's been some sparks and some times when it's been really good. It's been really solid. There's been some times when, like on Saturday, we missed some opportunities to move the ball. So, it's a work in progress. I think defensively, it's probably been the same thing. I think there's been some really good moments where, comparative to last year, I think we're way better than we were last year, tackling and some of those things. Do we want to be better? Absolutely. And then special teams, I think, have been solid. But to say that it's A level, we haven't had any 55-yard field goals. We gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown. That's not good. So it's, again, I think what you're seeing is last year, you saw some early blips and then kind of a flat line the last half of the season. What I think you've seen this year is more of this, right? And we've got to be able to stay more of this and less this. And I think it's not shocking to me in year 2 that we're seeing some really high highs and still some kind of low lows. It's the challenge of keeping the high highs more consistent. And that's what we're working on, right? On Saturday, I told the kids at halftime, we will be exactly halfway through the 2024 season and exactly 1.5 years game-wise into the time that I've been the head coach here, right? So where does that put us? Well, we need to be better next week than we were this week. We have to be more consistent. We have to take advantage of opportunities. But each game is independent of the previous game. It's nothing that happened last week that's going to give us 7 points or cost us 7 points this week. What we do at 2 o'clock on Saturday will be what we do at 2 o'clock on Saturday, and we get 4 or 5 days to affect that Saturday outcome. So let's make the most of this preparation. Let's let it go what happened last week, and we can't change it. And let's get better next week and see what we can do on Saturday versus a really good opponent.
Well, speaking of Saturday, this Saturday, Game 6 for the University of Sioux Falls football team will be against Minnesota State in Mankato, Saturday, October 5th, Blakesley Stadium, Mankato, Minnesota. Coach, I'm sure you're familiar with the stadium there. Been there a few times yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great venue. Again, most people know natural grass, right? I mean, if you're watching online, it may look like turf. It's beautiful. I give a big shout out to that grounds crew there. They are phenomenal, first class. It is a very, very nice surface. So I'm looking forward to being on some natural grass for the only time this year, right? We don't even practice on grass. So for our guys, this might be kind of weird, right? But it's a great venue. The stands are on top of you. I got a lot of people there that I have great relationships with. That'll be ironic. There'll be a lot of former players that are back for their homecoming. Guys are texting me saying they can't wait to watch the game. And I don't know that they're going to go as far as putting on Sioux Falls gear, but I think I can get them in purple. So at least we can get them in purple, hopefully support us a little bit. But, my 2 oldest kids, my son Jake is a deputy sheriff up in Nicollet County. He lives in Mankato. My daughter got married this summer, and her and her husband, they live in Mankato. And so, for me, there's a lot of history there. 3 of my children graduated from high school there. We have a lot of kids on our football team that were recruited by Mankato, some that actually committed to Mankato and came here when I got the job. We have some transfers that played at Mankato that now are with us. So, you can have the storyline upon storyline for this week. But I appreciate what Coach Hoffman did for myself and my family, gave me an opportunity to be a part of a program, played for a national championship, played in 12 playoff games there. So there's certainly some deep-rooted ties there. I love the city of Mankato. We had a great experience there. But I'm a Cougar. I'm a Sioux Falls Cougar. Don't ever get that twisted. And at the end of the day, I'm through and through Cougar. Winners win. I'm all in. This is where I want to be. This is where I wanted to be. I left that place to come here. This place is special to me. I'm the head football coach here. This is my program and my recruits and my players and our culture is going to go up to Sioux Falls or go up to Mankato and challenge their culture, quite frankly. And we're going to see what happens. We've got to play well. They're a very good football team. I know a lot of the kids on the team. I do not need a scouting report for this week. I know the players intimately. I know what they can do. They're very talented. They do a really good job of coaching. Todd Taylor, the defensive coordinator, I was part of the hiring process with him. He's a good friend of mine. Lavelle Jackson's an alum. He's a Sioux Falls Cougar. Chad Heading, the O-line coach. Ryan Schlichter, the OC. I mean, it goes on and on and on, the connections. And so, we'll set that aside. It is not about me. It is not. And I mean that. It's got nothing to do with me. Our players versus their players on Blakesley for 60 minutes will decide the outcome. The best thing I can provide is where the buses park, where to eat, and where to sleep and all that. And I know that pretty well. So we're not going to have any problems. We don't need a Garmin. We don't need a TomTom. Back in the day, Chad, you probably had a TomTom on your dash, driving back and forth from Sioux Falls to Vermilion, right? So we don't need a TomTom. I don't need Garmin. I don't need MapQuest. It's 2 hours and 30 minutes. I know the route to take to get there. I've driven it a million times. I'm excited. It's going to be a homecoming atmosphere. It'll be a great crowd, a great atmosphere for our players to play in. I hope there's a huge contingent of football fans there. And, I look forward to going up there and competing our tails off and seeing what we can do. And, we have a chance to be the top 10 team in the country. What else would you want in an October Saturday? This is what you sign up for. This is what you play for. And whatever happened at Minot, whatever happened against Bemidji, we're just not very good versus red and green Beavers. Maybe we're better versus purple Mavs, the Bovines. Maybe we're going to be awesome versus the purple Bovines. I don't know. We'll see. But we get a chance to play again. We're halfway through our season on Saturday, and I can't wait to go up there and take on the challenge of playing the Mavericks.
Wow, I'm fired up now, Coach.
Let's go.
Let's go.
It's too much Pepsi Zero. That's the problem right now.
All right.
We'll give our look. They're not part of the sponsorship, so too much caffeine this morning. I don't want to.
Well, that game kickoff scheduled for 2:00 p.m. on Saturday, as Coach mentioned. You can watch on the NSIC network or listen on KWSN 98.1 FM, 12:30 a.m., or at kwsn.com. 1:30 pregame show on KWSN. Tom Frederick, Tim Hyatt, and Chad Birger will be on the call. So we'll have the sideline buddy back. I'm looking forward to being down there with you, Coach, on Saturday. Mankato on the season, 5-0 record. You mentioned they're a top 5 team in the country. They had a huge win to open things up over Northwest Missouri State. Last second win over Bemidji State, win over Wayne State, big win over Minot, who we just faced this past week, and then this past week got a 33-20 win over Concordia. That was actually 33-6 late in the fourth quarter. Concordia got a couple touchdowns there to kind of make it look a little closer than the game was. But you mentioned Coach Todd Hopner's in his 14th season at Mankato. He's won 80% of his games there, Coach. I mean, he's had tremendous success at Mankato.
Yeah, he's done a great job. There's no doubt about that. And, Todd and I have known each other for a long time. We coached together at the University of South Dakota. That's when I first met him. Our families are friends, and, a lot of respect for what he's done at that program. He helped me grow as a football coach. I learned a lot. Some of the things that we do here are indicative of the things that I learned under him at Mankato and how to be a championship culture program. And we aspire to be like them. I'm not going to lie about that. We aspire to be a top 10 program and to be a playoff contender. And I think there's a lot of things you can learn from him. Now, like anything else, I have to do it my way. And we're certainly different personalities. Anybody knows the two of us would 1,000% say that we're different personalities. And that's okay. But his way works for him. And I'm trying to make my way work for me. And again, a lot of respect for him and the program, and just know how hard they work and how hard they work at it, and the time and commitment and the kids put in. I understand how that goes. And again, nothing but mutual respect. And, we'll shake hands and we'll go about our business. And when it's over, we'll both go our separate ways and looking for a really good football game.
So the Mavericks on the season are averaging, 215 yards per game rushing, 240 yards passing, 450 yards per game, outgaining opponents by about 150 yards per game on the season. They're tremendous up front. They have big offensive linemen. They're very consistent. Defensive line, very stacked there as well. A couple guys that are, pretty prominent in the stat sheet there. But they also have some really good other players. I know running backs, they've got a 3-headed monster that you're going to see this week. And so it's you got your work cut out for you against the Mavericks.
Yeah, no doubt. And they're big up front. I think the thing that speaks to their success is he's always been about luck and linemen, in recruiting. And I think, we kind of feel the same way here. You've got to have an arsenal of offensive and defensive linemen. And they've done a good job in acquiring some talent via the transfer portal. But their offensive line, if you look at their O-line across the front, that starting crew, those guys are all born and raised in that program. From Marshall Forner to Nathan Gribble, right? I go on down the line. They got a ton of guys, at center. They've got Zach Rogo, a kid from Brandon Valley. Deontay Vinny is a kid from Rochester. Colby Hardig is a Wisconsin kid. I know those kids really well. And then you got Gabe Hagan at tight end, who's a senior. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are all fifth-year seniors, and one's a junior. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember exactly. But at tight end, they've got Anthony Valanis, a kid I recruited. That's a 6th-year guy, I believe, at tight end, along with Jake Cicero, who's a junior, a redshirt junior, and then Gabe Hagan's a senior. And then you go to the wide receiver core, where they got a pretty special wide receiver, Trayshawn Watson, a kid that we tried to recruit, kid that transferred out of Central Missouri. But he's a dynamic playmaker, number 6. They've got Grant Guyette, who's a really good football player, who probably would be a number 1 on most teams in this league. And going down the road, they just got so many talented playmakers. There's Emmanuel is another kid, number 13. So, and then quarterback, it's still at the end of the day, Hayden Eckern is the straw that stirs that drink. He's a senior. He's a really talented kid. He really knows where to go with the football. He doesn't waste many reads, and then he can beat you with his feet if he needs to. And then you already mentioned the tailback situation. And the Sam Backer is a kid that I wasn't super familiar with. He came after I left, but he's a kid out of, I think, Chatfield, Minnesota, is an outstanding talent, can really run, a redshirt freshman. And then you got Tony Ager and Christian Vassar. And Tony Ager and Christian Vassar would also, if they're not the number one guy on their depth chart, they would be at most teams in this league. So, they've got quality and depth across the front. They've got Zach Brady's a kid that is an offensive lineman for him. His mother actually babysat my children in Vermilion, South Dakota when I was at USD and Todd was there. So I've known the Brady family. I played with his dad. So there's just a lot of that kind of cool connections. They're good people. They're good players. They're good kids. And I expect them to be excited to probably put it on Coach Glow if they can. I wouldn't expect anything else. They did that last year. They were very spirited when they took on the Sioux Falls Cougars last year, and they wanted to probably make a point and emphasis, which I'm fine with that. I get it. That's part of the deal. So just really excited about the opportunity to go compete another game, whether it's Minot, Bemidji, or Mankato. It's October, man, and we're playing football on a Saturday. It should be a beautiful day. Can't wait.
That's right. Always a great atmosphere over there. Cougars have had some pretty good crowd turnouts over in that way. And, we do have several Cougar alum that live over in Minnesota that hopefully will make the trek. I'm going to try to reach out to a few over the course of the week to see if, they're going to be available. Coach, you mentioned Lavelle Jackson. I was going to tell you a quick story about him. He was actually a student in my class when I was a professor at University of Sioux Falls. And I believe when he was in my class, he was.
That's how he graduated.
Oh, okay.
I always was wondering if there is. Lavelle, he's got some sneaky ways about him, so that makes sense. He had some favors. Is that what you're trying to get at here? Did you slide him by?
I was going to say he was actually I think it was like the Maxim magazine nominee for the sexiest male in South Dakota.
If we had more time, I could pull that up on Google, but I would never do that to my man Lavelle. But he was one of the most handsome men in all of South Dakota, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, absolutely.
He's going to love this. I'm sure he's not listening, but if he is, I hope he knows that we know he's a handsome devil.
Yeah,
handsome devil, man.
Looking forward to seeing you again this week, Coach Jackson, if you're watching. But Coach, I'm fired up for this Saturday. I know you are too. Any final thoughts before we close out the show here?
No, I would just say, again, it's about people. It's about people, the people connections I had there, the people in this program that I've connected with here. Our kids they're frustrated. They're disappointed. They're all those things. But we can't sit there and just, my wife loves when I use this word, perseverate and just hunker on what happened and just beat ourselves to death over it. We got to move on. And we're 3-2. We got a chance to go be 4-2. Let's go do that. Let's take advantage of the opportunity because you're only given so many of them. That's life. That's football. Let's put it behind us. Let's go get a great week of practice in and let's see what we can do. And I'm excited to go back. I'm excited to see people. There's great people up there that not just in the football program, but from the athletic director to other coaches, the track coaches, the softball coaches, the baseball. I mean, all the different coaches I got to meet. I'm sure there'll be a lot of those people there. Former players that I coach will be there. So for me personally, it's exciting because that's an investment in people. That's what I'm trying to do here, and that's what it's all about. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. Look at the closure here. You're going to like this. I appreciate the closure and the investment you guys make in us. I appreciate the time you give us, and just really fortunate to be able to get back at it and get better next week.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap up giving a shout out here to the Cougar Football Legacy Association. The Cougar Football Legacy Association's mission is to bring alumni, family, friends, and supporters together to help equip the USF football program with the resources necessary to continue its winning legacy. For more information, visit www.coulegacy.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can click on the QR code on the screen and it will bring you to the website. The Cougar Football Legacy Association sponsors all the tailgates that you see for home games. And so the next home game, if you want more information, come on out to the tailgate party before the kickoff, and you can meet with the Cougar Football Legacy Association officers. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. For Coach Jim Glogowski and for Sam Dooyema, I'm Chad Birger. Until next time, go Cougars.